looking well beyond the UC application to make final admission decisions. What will end up happening is most of those colleges or schools on any UC campus will have a link on their website to the supplemental application or the other requirements, be it a portfolio, an audition, an interview, letters of recommendation that specialty school requires. So even prior to applying, a student can usually get some familiarity with what will be asked as a next step, and could even start preparing for that. Once a student fills out the UC application and November rolls around and they click submit, if they chose something like nursing or a visual performing arts or something like that, they'll be prompted in most cases by the individual campuses that, we see that you express an interest in nursing. Here is a link to the nursing supplement. Or we see here you express an interest in theater. Here is a link to signing up for a theater audition either on campus or in the Bay Area or whatever it may be. And so students can expect to have to do something in those majors as a next step. But the good news is most are actually pretty excited to do it because the faculty, either on their own or in consultation with the admissions office, will review that, will make those decisions as to who will be offered a space in the freshman class. And it usually will come down to their talent, their ability to succeed in that major. A program like nursing's, again, for example, at UCLA, nursing is going to look at kind of background and experience in that, answers to questions about caring for others and preparation for a field of that nature. And so they're going well beyond test scores or GPA or even kind of academic performance. They really at that point need to know that you have the talent or you have the ability to be successful in that major. And that's what those supplemental forms or additional aspects are trying to do.
No, I love them because they really gives that chance for that student to show that human side for you guys to investigate for that passion. And it's been a great benefit. And I love how in the application it pops up right away, supplemental. Yeah. So in case someone didn't do their homework beforehand, you know it right then and there when you select it. So when some students select other majors like business or engineering or other impacted majors that are really high in demand at your campuses, are there extra steps students need to be aware of?
So this will vary from campus to campus. So there will be some UC campuses where the major you select in these areas like business or even engineering or even other areas like the sciences, major won't really play a role in the review. It's primarily focused on your preparation for that UC campus. At other UCs, the major you indicate absolutely could be a focus of the review process. So, for example, at UCLA, engineering is one of those specialty schools where you complete the UC app, you click submit. We do 2 reviews in the admissions office, and every single person who applied to engineering is sent along to the faculty in engineering. And they do an additional review of that application with a lens toward the student's ability to solve problems, to think critically. It's not just that they're involved in math or science competitions. It's well beyond that. It's the ability to problem solve and to think about it from a human angle because engineers are solving dilemmas or problems for people on a macro level. And so the faculty in engineering value the chance to really review an application with that mindset. So there's nothing more that a student had to do other than present that aspect of who they are in their application to make sure that they're aligned with the interests of the engineering faculty. If it's something like business, again, depending on the UC, they may be looking for a student who's a good fit for business. If other campus, they might not even take that into account. So it's a great question to ask each campus that a student's interested in applying to.
Great. And they can always just call or email each of the UC campuses, correct?
Yes, or if they do a school visit, that would be the other opportunity to talk with them face-to-face or at a local college fair or evening program or something.
And another question some students may have is there are some optional sections like the parent's profession, education, and income. Should a student fill out these optional sections?
So they are not required to. Just because we say they're optional, there's not a wink and a nod that they're supposed to do that. That will have absolutely no bearing. If it's filled out or blank, it has no bearing on the admission process. What's especially helpful in filling out those sections is those are factors that determine whether or not a student will get a fee waiver. on the UC application. So we don't accept College Board fee waivers or ACT fee waivers when a student's filling out the application. Based on the answers they give to questions of that nature, the need for a fee waiver is calculated, and then the student at the end of the process, when they're finalizing the application, would be alerted as to whether or not they qualified for a fee waiver. If they did, they can apply that to up to 4 UC campuses where they do not have to pay the application fee for those 4 campuses. So that would be the only reason I would say there's absolutely no negative effect if they indicate any information about parents' profession, education, or income. If they leave it blank, the only thing they run the risk of is not qualifying for a fee waiver.
Right. And then also those students, and I'm sorry, and also those students could also, if they do fill it out, could qualify for the EOP, the Educational Opportunity Program that's set up for first-generation college-bound students that meet that income criteria as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Great. And so when students start looking at the UC application, what are some common mistakes that you see students making on there?
I mentioned one of these earlier, and it's worth repeating. On the personal insight questions, if they don't answer the question, the full question, if they are not personal, if they're not insightful, if we don't learn anything about the applicant that we didn't already know, that's a missed opportunity. And you could say that's a mistake because they had the opportunity to share more, to give more perspective, and they didn't. And it's not necessarily a reason we would deny someone, but if thousands of students did what I just said, where they actually did provide that insight and context and perspective, you can see how someone who didn't, even with stellar academics or whatever it may be, would still be at a slight disadvantage in terms of offering them one of a limited number of seats. So I think that's one of the most common mistakes we see is a student thinking that the personal insight question answers really don't have any bearing on their decision, and so they either just dial them in, they write short answers, don't really think much about it, and in reality, that's a part of the application that is extremely impactful. And so that's a big mistake. I think the same is true in the extracurricular activities or the work experience. Students sometimes think that we might not want to know something, or maybe they don't think something's worthy of mentioning. The reason we give them that space is so they can share everything that defines what they've done with their free time, how they spend their time, where their priorities have been. And as long as it's something that has been meaningful or impactful to them, their family, their community, whatever it may be, we want to know. There's no wrong way to fill that out as long as it's full of meaningful activities and work experience and awards and recognition. And just talk a little bit about what all of those things were. There's 160 characters, space box, that you can talk about each of those things. And again, so many students leave that blank that it's a missed opportunity to shed a little more light on what we wanted to know. And the final thing I would say in terms of a common mistake is students probably just don't budget enough time to work on this application. The self-reported section takes some time. The mindset of kind of really answering the personal insight questions takes a little bit of time. And if they budget some time to do that, it'll be much easier than if they're kind of racing against the clock to try and finish it, thinking that it might be a little easier. So those would be a few things that come to my mind for common mistakes.
No, that's some great advice, because I can't tell you how many times students with the, like you said, the personal insights will talk about a problem, but the prompt asks for, and how would you solve it? And they forget the second part. Or students will describe an activity, but they're describing the club or the organization, not the significant role that they played in that. So very good advice that, like you said, many students overlook. So yes. One of the things that, on the kids' point of view, since the UC system receives so many applications every year, and it goes up every year, often a question pops up in their head saying, do they, meaning the UC readers, really read each of the applications? So can you explain how readers of the UC system go through each application thoroughly? Yes. So the first thing is, yes, we do really read them. Because of the volume of applications and because, frankly, of the quality of applications, we really struggle in making any decisions based on a test score or a GPA. It's just really a challenge to do so with the volume of applications we receive. The other part of that is, philosophically, we truly want to get to know the students. And we take very seriously our job at any of the UC campuses.
with bringing in the next generation of Bruins or Bears or Highlanders or whoever, whatever it is. And we want to make sure that we're making really sound decisions so that the students who come to our campus are prepared, are supported, and are going to thrive. And we don't view the people walking on the sidewalks in front of our buildings as an SAT score or a GPA. We really do believe that there's more to an individual. And while the academic factors are important, who they are, what they've done, what they'll contribute to our campus environment is an important part of the review, and we honestly can't understand that unless we do a complete read of the application. Most of us are actually reading the applications at least 2 times. And so we want it to not be a biased review. We want to make sure that 2 different readers are reading it and coming to the same conclusion. And the good news is in most cases that is happening. So we train and develop our readers very well. And that's important because, like I said earlier, even with that volume, we have the investment from our campus leaders to have the number of readers to get this done. Take UCLA as an example, because we are, unfortunately, the most applied to university in the country, so we do get a fair number of applications. We have hundreds of staff in the admissions office and across the campus, and college counselors from across the state who are involved in our reading process. And that level of expertise, that quality of review, many of them have been doing it for 10 or more years, means that we have a high-quality read, and those individuals know who is going to thrive at UCLA. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've had such a successful rate of students taking us up on our offer, graduating in 4 years, and having a really great experience. And I think that's replicated at so many UCs because we don't just make a quick decision based on a few numbers.
No, and through all my years working with the UC system, so many individuals are so devoted on making sure that students are aware of the UC system and making it accessible to all students. And if it doesn't seem like they're ready for it, they don't close the door, right? There's an option of, transferring, where a lot of schools have like tag agreements through the community colleges. And so I've seen the UC system open so many opportunities and make some great futures for so many different students out there.
Yeah, and I think it's that mindfulness to say if we aren't able to offer admission to a student for their freshman year, providing them the pathway and the tools and the guidance to say the next option is to go to a community college for a couple of years and then apply as a transfer student, which that process isn't as selective. It's a little more black and white, and that's where so many students, again, of the juniors and seniors at UCLA, 40% of them came to UCLA as transfer students.
That's right.
And so I think that what that tells a lot of students is this isn't a one-and-done type of a thing where if you don't get in as a freshman, there's no other pathway to the UC. It's that we recognize that we're selective. We also, for some of those students, they just might not be ready for the UC classroom. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as they know how to get ready through going to a community college. And when they do that, they get here and have an incredible 2 years. And what we always talk about is no one ever asks where you started college. They only ask where you graduated.
I know. It's always about the end story. And I remember the UC system did a study about how well community colleges prepare transfer students in the UC. And it was with flying colors of how well they have performed. And I know so many of my students have benefited from that through the years. So whether someone's thinking about the UC, whether going directly as an undergrad, as a freshman, or transferring, if they have more questions, where can they find help, Mike?
So if they are kind of just starting the process, the first thing they can do is go to the website or see if a UC campus is holding an event in their area or visiting their school and meet with that admissions representative. A lot of the UCs have evening programs or programs on the weekend that they can go to in their home areas, or come to the campus and go on a tour and attend an information session. Those opportunities are listed on our website as well, and all of the UC campuses offer that. Many of our websites also have kind of a Meet Your Counselor page where, for example, you could type in your county or you could type in your school, and it will tell you who the UC admissions representative is for your school. And so I think that through all those different avenues, there's a way to connect with those of us in the UC admissions world, and that's critically important because one difficulty that we